So I'll play the Constant Remembrance from volume 8, Bodhayanti Parasparam.
Talk delivered in April 2008 on the occasion of Pujya Sri Ramchandra Ji Maharaj's birthday celebrations 2008, titled Constant Remembrance, printed in Bodhayanti Parasparam volume 8, chapter 2.
Dear associates in the path, I offer my humble pranams at the holy feet of all the co-aspirants in the path assembled here today to celebrate the birthday of our beloved Master, Sri Ramchandra Ji Maharaj of Shahjahanpur, India. We were meditating for the past 1 hour and were drenched in the showers of divine grace as well as tears of joy in our hearts. In one word, we may say, we were in a state of prayer. Master said, if a person develops that state of mind, he is constantly in a state of prayer, which implies he has realized his own selfdom, and with the Lord's mastership, he has established a permanent link of devotion. Everyone can attain this state, but only after sufficient practice. He who acquires it abides in the state of supplication permanently. He is at liberty to put up humbly before the Master anything he likes. Everyone has to assume that state at the time of prayer, then alone is the prayer accepted. This is the relationship of love, which having been established in the sphere of self, extends up to that of the Master. This is a link which once established is never severed. But still, the final destination is far off, though the power of thought, which is enormously great, makes it easily accessible. Remembrance brings a lover close to the beloved. There is no limit to this closeness. The greater the love or affinity, the more does one advance towards him. This relationship comes to us by inheritance. Now it is up to us to develop it as far as to secure utmost nearness to him. The state of prayer is that of a devotee, and that is strengthened by love. This constitutes the first step in the ladder, which helps us to climb up to the ultimate. All stages or states of spiritual advancement are within it. The law of equivalence of form, in our language Sarupyata, determines that being close to something means being similar to it. To be close to the Master, we need only make our qualities similar to his own. I seek your indulgence to meditate on this thought during the period of celebration and take such decisions as you would consider necessary to put into action your understanding. It's an interesting world we live in. We may be just 1 yard apart, speaking to each other, seeing, hearing, and perhaps even smelling each other. Yet we have no idea what each of us is thinking and what we really want. Perhaps in this very minute we are thinking about someone living in a different place or even at a different time. We all say we love the Master. It is for certain that we all know that people in love are the most boring people to talk to. They may be standing right in front of us, but their minds are constantly on the charming, lovely, wonderful, smart, loved one. We should all naturally agree that this should be our state of mind if we really mean our love to our Master. Whether it is so, let the lovers of the Master answer for themselves. Further we say, we love each other dearly as all of us are dearly seeking the same master. Yet, if we are asked as to who was sitting by our side during the meditation, it is doubtful whether we would come forward to answer. If there were to be an answer, it is obvious that the object of love was not the one. But we know there are lovers of the Master who say that their meditation was affected because of the person who was before him, throwing out the entire person's dirt on them. So many other judgments of others are made by these types of persons, and they veil their love of the Master could not be expressed fully. But it must be clearly understood that during our deep mergence in the thought or consciousness of our beloved Master, we recognize none but Him. It is thus clear that we think, feel and imagine what we feel close to and what we really want. This is our internal life. Sarupyata, or the law of equivalence of form, is not a new discovery in spirituality. It is obvious that we can only detect what our senses can perceive. The eye, for example, can perceive images by receiving specific wavelengths between the colors purple and red. That is why we cannot see shorter wavelengths than purple, such as ultraviolet, with the naked eye. A bee, on the other hand, does see ultraviolet, and this enables it to detect different kinds of flowers that we humans would not be able to distinguish. We all know that our world contains many frequencies, most of which we cannot receive, although they do affect us, like the radio or X-ray waves. But the right instrument that can translate these waves to a length our sense organs can perceive, we will be able to detect those waves in the space around us. If we are asked what is being broadcast right now on our favorite radio station, we would most likely say that we do not know. But if we turned on the radio and switched to the frequency of our favorite station, we would immediately answer. This is due to the fact that the radio fixes itself to work on a frequency that existed in the air before we turned it on. It helps us transform the message created in the radio station from an undetectable wavelength to one our ears can detect. The law of equivalence of form works in the spiritual world also. But in spirituality, it's all about similarity and dissimilarity of intentions, not about equivalence of frequencies. All that is measured in the spiritual world are intentional thoughts. The intention of the pranasya pranaha that governs the whole reality, including our lives, is only to bestow, to give. It acts out of love. If we want to know and understand how the world is ruled, we should also acquire the intention to bestow. If we concentrate on ourselves and on our personal benefit, we will not know the reasons for everything that happens around and within us, since we remain detached from. From the superior force of pranasya pranaha. It is only when our consciousness equalizes with the divine we discover the true nature of all things and how all are intertwined, and in the process find happiness and peace. No one other than the Master has stated this principle of equivalence better. By being in complete oneness with the Master, it follows that if Master is merciful, we should become merciful. As he is called gracious, we are also to be gracious. As he is called holy, we too shall be holy. The importance of complying with the 10 commandments of the Master can be easily understood when we know these implications. We then shall become personifications of forbearing, compassionate, righteous, and all such good, noble and godly qualities. Oneness with the Master or God shall lie in conducting ourselves in such a way to resemble Him as much as one can. I request all to study in depth the lives of the Masters and educate the children in this regard. That is our duty and should be our way of loving the Master. Master said, "Love him who loves all." I would prefer to appeal, live in such a manner that he would live in us. It's a great pleasure to be with the persons who love the Master, heart, mind and soul. Surely amongst us there are persons who have, if I can use the phrase, perfected their insignificance to merit being with the Master always. All are in fact with Him alone. All are in fact with Him alone. But there are some who are not seen as different from the Master. Traveling together over a period of 4 decades has a sentiment of its own. Such a sentiment carries along with it the scent of the divine. My being swells in joy and freedom to be deserving such a company, and it is all His play. Constant remembrance is a means and is also the end. That is the beginning of sadhana, and that is also the nature of the first ring of splendor. We live in such a state now, and let us continue to live in that state. And that is not difficult if we keep Him in our heart. Pranam.
So it just played the Constant Remembrance from the Bodhayanti Parasparam, volume 8.
Okay. Any other talk is there? Similar idea?
Sir, one of the talk, when we are out of light, we fall in darkness, and when we are out of reality, one becomes Satan. That's the talk.
Talk delivered in March 2004 on the occasion of the seminar, "When we are out of reality, we become Satan," printed in Bodhayanti Parasparam, Volume 3, Chapter 19.
Master, in his message on the occasion of a seminar on superstition and spirituality, way back in late 60s of the last century, made a series of remarkable statements when he said, "When we are out of light, we fall in darkness. When we are out of wisdom, we become fools." Beautiful. The idea of a dog is not a dog, and the idea of freedom is not freedom. Many an intellectual who thinks he got an idea of the reality and freedom by reading books is deluding himself by such an idea. Reading books and understanding the same is not this as real understanding. We train ourselves and also seek guidance to train our mind. An animal trainer manipulates an animal by making what he wants the animal to do. The easiest thing to do is first taught, and then when the animal does what was desired, he is given a little reward. The animal has what seems to be a choice. With humans, it is the same, and the rewards are money, property, prestige, sensual experience, relief from pain, or even more subtle and insidious, the promise of these things or the fear of losing them. Think of it, every advertisement you see falls into this realm. Political and spiritual propaganda and other artistic deception also offer these rewards. For many, true self-inquiry seems impossible. People of all nations, colors and creeds have imbibed from birth so much that is false and intellectualized. It makes sense because this is what everyone was doing and it was how they were educated. Perhaps trained is a better word than educated or socialized. And of course, this will upset people because it is unflattering. The point that I am trying to clarify is the folly of taking something that is contrived and try to make it appear natural. This is a fundamental absurdity that we find in most of the so-called educative processes. I make it clear this folly is resorted to by those teachers who say they are rebels and make others feel they are rebels against indoctrinations and trainings. When we look carefully, we find these rebellious teachers promising the very same rewards the earlier teachers promised and attempt to pass another lie. If we think well, we can see there is none who would rebel against what is unreal, for there is no need to. Any rebellion makes what is rebelled against seem more real, and that is why people swing from rebellion to conformity and vice versa. All societies have this in common. If we see someone not doing these things, then that person may appear very odd. One thing I have benefited from the practice of PAM and the style of life proposed in the commandments of the Master is that life is to be enjoyed in full and that I can move with the divine abreast. I embrace life fully and am free to enjoy because I do not seek more things to make me whole, and the company of the divine in the core of heart is more than a substitute to many charms and comforts that are offered and dangled. I am not separate from who I am, devoted to the Lord. So the experiences of life simply come and go as they do, and to me, the coming and the going is in the midst of true freedom. Living in freedom is a lively, interesting, and fully involved expression far outside the realm of fear. This freedom is what I feel in the company of the Master, whose presence in my being is such as it vibrates in every pore. I am fortunate beyond what I ever imagined to have the grace to live in his company. As against the common notion, when once Master takes over, we lose everything, I have learned that there is nothing that I have lost by engaging myself consciously with him. What I have noticed is that rather than having lost anything, my ability to discern, to effectively clarify what is real from what is imagined, has been ignited and nurtured by truth itself as my own awareness. One of the greatest lies is that which is familiar is trustworthy. But this is a myth, and I have found that the familiar is not trustworthy. But because it is familiar, it has a habit-forming capacity of making us feel it is trustworthy. We should not trust what is familiar or that which has become habit. Habit does not grant clarity, but unfortunately, it can and does often obscure clarity. Living in freedom in the company of the Master is not only easy and joyful and rewarding, as by its very nature, truth nurtures the ability of the mind to clarity. Because of this, I have been requesting co-travelers to be aware of the presence of the Master and be with him rather than in their own realm of ideas and imaginations, illusions and delusions about the goal, as the very ideas of the goal is based on imagination and fiction. We need to go nowhere to be with him. He is in the innermost core of our being. If we check for ourselves how close he is, we will surely feel sorry that we did not care for him all these days. We should be in his company, in conversation, in friendship, in love, however we can, even fighting. Because even struggle with him has yielded clarity many times, as I have confided with some of my friends several times, whereas a struggle in any other environment we know keeps us remained unclear. Conflict is generally a river moving into a desert and dying hopelessly. Or it has yielded nothing but strife. In this strife with the Master, as I have found, it has been a river leading always to the vast ocean of my own being. I request others to join me and see for themselves how being in the company of the Master can and does open our opportunity to notice who we are. Master wants us to be identical with nature. I have found that when we are not natural or not recognizing our very being in the inseparable relationship with the divine, we tend to seek rewards in a myriad forms to appease the discontent. This discontent is due to the sense of separation from our essential nature. There is no arbitrary reward that will quiet the anguish born of this delusion of separation. Putting it plainly, no money, property, prestige, sensual experience, relief from pain, or the promises of these things will help in feeling contented. This is not to say that our nature is against these things, for it is not relative to these things. Obviously, this is true because our nature is not more or less as a result of having or not having these things. One of the problems of speaking or particularly writing about freedom of self-realization is that the conditions of life have trained people to dismiss anyone who are not offering the ephemeral rewards. There is no reward for realizing. This is not an acceptable idea to many indoctrinated in the lies of religion and pseudo-spirituality. There is offering of experience or objects as a reward for doing the right thing. There is no offering of experiences or objects as a reward for doing the right thing. Those things happen on their own. As Master puts it, automatically or naturally. In truth, there can be no training for self-realization except through the natural path of pranahuti, which utilizes a common inheritance. The most natural way of being is self-realization. So natural it is not a way of being, it is being itself. It is what we cannot but be. We cannot find any place or plane where being is not. Even if we try to imagine a place where being is not, that very imagination will be coming and going within the being. Being is what we cannot lose, and it is only identification with the false that obscures the realization. That is why Master invites us to be with him in silence or in meditation, and then learn the language of silence. In that silence, all experiences that take place within become clear to us, and then we need not have to be with the conscious effort of meditation. We then abide with him and always, and that is real constant remembrance. Many experiences we have during our spiritual practice reveal to us that there is more to life than just mundane day-to-day perceptions of the world and thoughts about these perceptions. There are mind-boggling psychic and energetic experiences during meditations, and as we advance in our spiritual life, we come to understand the value of the initial introduction to the path and also the individual sittings we have had with our trainers and masters. For one not in the path of Pan, it is beyond his or her own habits of mind, samskaras and vasanas, to see beyond, and so most of what we experience is not anything that is possible for them. There is also a myth that once a person is introduced and then initiated into the spiritual mystery of life, awakening to the truth of the self or being would be a natural progression. It may surprise many when I state that it is not so. What really happens is that as one progresses in the path, along with the newly acquired wisdom at each stage, the very experience becomes the identity of our being. One in the path, having moved from the stage of Viveki to the level of Bhakta, remains not the same, but moves his identity of being to an altogether different plane, which is more subtle and has its own laws and logic. As a person experiences great openings and consequentially develops phenomenal energetic shaktis in his being, he is in fact owning up those very experiences which he has had during periods of meditation and contemplation. Then one is sure that he is evolving. Though a person may feel that he has got awakened during meditation to the real nature of his being, there is scope for the experience to fade out into a memory without establishing its identity in the higher plane. Unfortunately, if we allow ourselves this fall, then our identity is in turmoil again. That is why I have always appealed to co-travelers to own up the experiences during meditations by conscious and concentrated efforts. This creates the need to go deeper into the methods, having more faith in the master and committing oneself to the total emergence, or more appropriately, total identification in the being. This is when there is a scope for great falls in the status of our identity in the final level planes acquired assiduously by negating everything of the identity of the lower planes. If we unfortunately lose our connection through false notions of real identity other than that of our being in the Master, that is when we lose touch with the reality and we emerge as Satan for all those who are in the lower planes than ourselves. The solution to the problem of an experience getting faded out and not wound up is to ever remain in the thought of the Master and remembering nothing but Him in all that we think, speak, and do. By being aware of the possibilities of the newly acquired status, though temporary to start with, and committing to live in that plane of being, the thinking, if only I could remember Him and be in His thought in all thoughts, actions, and things that I do constantly, I could maintain the experience. We should be able to live in that condition. If instead we start being aware of our status of identity at the level at which we live and we move forgetting Him, there is a scope of Satan emerging in us. It is the inability to live the teaching constantly and perfectly that is the problem. It has been said before, and I say it now, it is almost impossible to speak of what is reality and awakening oneself to reality. It is not because realization is very complex, but it is so supremely simple that its very simplicity is obscured by the mind. This is the wheel that needs to be removed, or as the Master puts it, turn your head towards it and do not turn back. I have been harping always on the 9th commandment as the enlightenment in action. And many have in fact shared with me this by embracing in full the life that is guided, that is gifted to us by the Divine, and are aware of the supple and joyful ease of being. Somehow some persons cannot imagine what that is truly, but they try to realize with all their endowments. I find them and their imagination rooted in the past and restrained by preconceived ideas. It is not what is imagined by them that is the problem, but the very habit to picture awakening in their mind as lovely circumstances that are ideal and fit a particular criterion that carry with it a sense of security and confidence that these circumstances will not be threatened, that is the problem. In fact, this is one of the problems generated not necessarily by religion per se, but by the artists and poets and novelists who wrote their imaginations in the field of religion. Wisdom and greatness have been thrust on poets and singers, and thereby tradition has effectively effaced the difference between a sage and a songster, or a mystic or a musician. Many may feel bad if I say Annamaya or Tyagaraja and many more Tamil, Hindi, and Telugu, Sanskrit poets are only good religious poets, and the state of realization is miles off their reach. Saint Kabir, however esteemed he was in the mind of our Master, was only stated to have had access up to the 16th circle in his diagram of stages of realization, comprising of 23 circles. I do not draw any parallels, but only state that we tend to judge wrongly because of certain ideas and notions that have arisen from falsehood and fiction. The idea of divine resource development that I have been talking several times somehow got twisted in the minds of well-meaning persons as a call to pull out from the shelves and almirahs the old and dusty copies of the beautifully yet falsely portrayed items of dance and drama, of imaginary divine beings, and all forms of art supposedly help the fountain of spirituality to emerge. If one happens to be a center of such pseudo-spiritual energy, then he will be imagining a world where the old arts, presumably inspired by energetic phenomena or Shaktis, give us evidences of their evolution in spiritual plane, and would like others by extolling the same art forms with the same kind of confidence and security they feel they have, but which in fact deserve a place in the museums of history. This is one of the most disturbing features of modern world for a sincere seeker. The variations on these themes are as diverse as possible as people can be. Imaginations are pregnant, but one cannot afford to deliver demons, however imaginative the form conceived might be. Virtual screens have become of late the major problem for many who would like to live in reality and not in images and imaginations. Such a diverse from reality can only create the atmosphere most conducive to Satan and his perfect dramas and plays. Obviously, imagination is unreal by its very nature, and as such cannot liberate anyone. Imagination is the realm of Saturn, and reality is the realm of God. This should be remembered by all aspirants in the path. Once this type of succumbing to the virtual images start, one is surely bound to end in fabricated preoccupations that churn up the water, and then, of course, the mind sharks come to consume the make-believe butter. Explaining how all religious and ritualistic attempts to know reality has only put us into greater and more beautiful chains and shackles has been the theme of all those who tread the path of spirituality, and every attempt to expose these as superstitions led many a times to a total mistrust on the person who tries to shatter their belief systems. This is because, unfortunately, these beliefs induce such sentiment that to expose them brings mistrust. It is not distrust that arises from being lied to or manipulated, but the mistrust has its origin in the people having been told to believe that these ideas are needed. It would be better if we can examine certain belief systems to understand the point. The most commonly held superstition or belief is that rich people are happy. We know rich people who live in hellish life, and still in the imagination of others, it is believed that it would be different if it were they who were rich, or richer as the case may be. This belief persists even when people reject it and give lip service to ideas to the contrary. So often, rich people are uneasy, trying to hold on to what they have, though they can indeed lose the same easily and purchase peace. Many are adept in eclipsing ruthlessly their hold on riches, and they are afraid to share. This fear is not just limited to the rich. Sharing has its challenges. Love is essentially based on the principle of sharing. But sharing threatens the ego, and consequently love equally threatens the ego. This may not be palatable to many. Many spouses say they love and are intimate, but when asked if they would tell their partners the things they tell their friends, then they avoid any answer. If we can tell a friend something we won't tell our spouse, then obviously the better half is really a worse half, and how true it is, everyone has to think. The intention is, in making the above statement, is not to deny the desire of these people to love and to be loved, but to point out that genuine love is not had without the principle of sharing. The difference between love and the ideas of love is vast. I am told that there is a stone that imitates the look of gold called pyrite. I was also informed that many a miner has been disillusioned to find that the glittering nuggets of his labor are not gold. The term fool's gold must have emerged from this experience. Imagine the elation of a miner who has been seeking and slaving to find the precious metal, only to discover that he is slogged for the fool's gold. The imagination, elation, and emotion that would have been fired finally led one only to learn that it is worthless. That would be painful. And so would it be for persons who are fired with imaginations of the company of damsels and angels, which was imagined in the beautiful gardens of the divine, that is sought to be heard after performing certain sacrifices and rituals. This is so with love of anything but the reality or master. Wealth has converted many desires into the stature of needs, and the number of needy persons has been a growing factor in the consumerist society that is threatening our lifestyles. It is not that our old lifestyles were more satisfactory than the emerging ones, but the fact that the emerging pattern also owes its origin to the very same superstition that we no longer have enough. That is the cause of alarm. Enough is the philosophy of our land, and could easily be the philosophy of the human race. The constant striving for more and more exposes that satanical sacred discontent which is now getting globalized. A sister superstition to this belief of not having enough at any time is the belief that wealth grants security. We learn sooner or later in life that all the pleasure that wealth can buy does nothing but postpone the inevitable. They are seeking in circumstances the promise of security, but alas, that is the one thing circumstances cannot give, because the very nature of existence is change, constant change. We can examine in similar manner the myths of beauty, prestige, and power. Beauty, money, strength, etc. are not inherently bad, but they cannot do what people believe they can do. They cannot make an imaginary sense of self real. Cosmetic industry, new styles of dress, new hairstyles are born in myth, grow in myth, and like the ancient asuras, live long enough before they die. Even as proverbially competent asuras, these would also give a replicate or a duplicate before leaving the scene. Our imagined self is always threatened by reality. There are no exceptions. It is only a matter of time until the threat becomes obvious. The more sincere a person, the sooner he walks out of these myths and plays of Saturn. Out of reality, one cannot escape this influence of Saturn. In whatsoever fine manner one may try to. There is a superstition that the path is evenly paced. This has come about in spite of the fact the path has been shown as zigzag by the master. I am fortunate in having met our master in person and many other masters in the system and elsewhere. Meeting one who is free is a very different event entirely. My meeting with masters is similar to my walking downstairs, supposedly equally spaced apart, and taking a step expecting there to be another, only to realize there is not only a different distance to this next step, but there is no step at all, has led me many times to feel out of control. Amusingly nowadays, when I have problems with my feet, which remain in a state of eternal numbness, diabetic neuropathy, I got reminded of the steps I had with the masters. The stairs are a good metaphor for imaginary relationship models. In a way, the metaphor has two implications, because people also use relationships to try to get where they imagine themselves going. These people use other persons as a means to an end, like stairs. One who does not understand the real nature of the guide or master will surely end with a dummy or a satanical guru. This, of course, would be unfortunate. Having reached where I am, I do not accept any identity when it is offered, either positive or negative, because it is unreal. I also do not offer identity to others, as the identity is ever changing, and therefore many get perplexed sometimes with me and my behavior. Many say that it takes courage to meet me, and that is really ununderstandable to me. I am plain and straight and have no masks in the ordinary sense of the term. In other words, I live real. I used to hear the same about my revered father, Dr. KCV, who is almost feared as tiger. For persons accustomed to meet always others in proxy, this may be so. It is Saturn who resists the real. Saturn has an excellent way of making false appear as more than true, and those who smell this trick of the original jester, Saturn, naturally are avoided. In the realm of the real, there is nothing as fear or lack of confidence. One who is awake does not need confidence, because an awakened one does not look to the circumstances of life to get a sense of self. Neither circumstances nor people's ideas are the measure of who an awakened one is. The true self is always obvious in every circumstance, including unpleasant ones. The byproduct of self-realization is not to be in conflict. There is no conflict even with conflict. A self-realized person cannot be controlled, neither are they predictable. Just look at life and it becomes clear that the awakened one is simply in harmony with life. It is only those who expect to predict the circumstances in life that get disillusioned, because life is not predictable. This realization is what our astrologers should have. But tradition and its lies have made this not acceptable, and the research for the black cat is on in the dark room. Many suffer from a spiritual superstition. People want spirituality to fulfill all their egoistic dreams and to bring security where it does not exist. It is for this reason that seeking is endless, because the ego is a sense of self that exists only in thought and can never be real, let alone secure. In one moment of no thought, the essence of meditation that is experienced by us in the path of PAM, the ego is gone. and with it the need to make it secure. It's a great superstition to think that one can make the ego secure and confident. Ego itself is a superstition and a closely cherished myth, and this will become clear only after one crosses the rings of egoism. Until then, the chase for security for this non-entity called ego is on. A splendid avocation that kept the imagination of millions alive for several millennia. But then, by the time one reaches that step in the ladder, one should have got accustomed to find him naked with himself. One of the most destructive consequences of ego is its identification with ideas and its basic inability or unwillingness to look directly at any reality, which is unflattering to that contrived sense of self. Life is always exposing what is unreal, but avoidance keeps the real just out of reach. This is the problem of ego. And in the modern persons, we find this as a particularly bad case of affliction of avoidance. There is a desire to maintain a confidence in that which is not only dubious but also unreal. It is no wonder that many modern schools of enlightenment who are selling some of the innumerable forms of this confidence and enlightenment are having many and varied categories of clients. Saturn is very busy and popular nowadays, selling superstitions of varied tastes and stages. There are too many masters and messiahs of the modern world, marketing freedom, liberation, and enlightenment. Name the type of freedom we want, we have a dozen persons ready to serve us. From the therapist talking about how it should have been, how we should be, and what we needed and did not get, the service range has a broad spectrum from sex to spirituality. All these marketing messiahs have one appeal, namely what you would be like if the lifelong quest for more becomes more and more ingrained and individuals have moved to their last resting place, having spent their lives chasing the trivial, overrated Shaktis and popular wisdom. Now it is important to note that inducing emotion using drugs and other means is not inherently bad or good, nor will the dream promises of fulfillment be attained by these means. These things cannot be what they are not, and the idea that is held is they can be what they are not. The idea is what I understand as superstition, the Saturn, institution of the Saturn. The ideas of what these things mean is false and is far away from reality. Confidence is, by its very nature, relative and is based on circumstances. A person who has been successful indeed may have a sense of confidence that the one who has been losing may not. But even when it appears to be working, it is often also pretense. People often feign confidence when found in the wrong places, doing wrong things, or any time they are frightened. A few years ago, many software professionals who took their high-wage jobs for granted and even confidently considered themselves entitled to a particular way of life are now disillusioned. Now, if they even have a job, they manifest themselves in the workplaces with a feigned confidence because there are many competitors who would be willing to take their place, perhaps for less money. Many corporate bosses behave with the workforce, giving them a direct or indirect threat. Where confidence once reigned, there is now timidity. There are countless examples. A woman losing her looks, a man losing his health. All this, however, is getting lost somehow in life or death. The question of who are you is still there. All these things can tear away the false security of the fictitious safety net that is woven in the mind from the ideas. Then the desperation to find the ideas that really work becomes very strong. Hence the superstition of seeking new systems and somehow ending up with reliance on weak and undeserving authorities, the comfort of a group returned to tradition and hiding in the ignorance behind a display of knowledge. But no effort or experience that is achieved will ever make what is unreal real. Confidence is of less substance than the soap bubble and even more fragile. Any event can expose its transitory nature. Confidence itself, thus, is a great superstition. There is a need to differentiate between this type of confidence and the faith, more appropriately reliance in the master in the path. We want to know the ease and splendor of being, the blissful peace of our real nature that embraces all events, then we will have to abide in our true state of being in the blessing splendor of the Master. That is why I say, let us find out who we truly are. Meditation is not about attaining a higher state. It is about the removal of all that which obscures our true nature. For that the PAM is the fastest way. I had many occasions when someone questioned my reliance on the Master as my guide in life and felt that I was becoming superstitious as they found him an ordinary person. I found that this is due to the fact that people in general have the habit of often trusting that which is untrustworthy, and they mistrust what is trustworthy. Master did no miracles and has in fact spoke about persons who do the same with certain amount of disgust. Many of the persons who questioned my trust in the Master were in fact worshipping the gurus of sorts. I wonder, perhaps they were already awkward and afraid that they simply felt this when they were in the presence of the great Master in person or as an idea. I am sure many aspirants would agree with me when I say that we felt our own smallness and cunning state of mind while we were near him, which we have felt as resistance to his company. This experience is not any particular individual reaction before the Master, but is a shared one. In other words, we feel our resistance to the real, and our own identification as mind is threatened just by being in the presence of the Master. The resistance of grossness to the superfine consciousness is a matter of experience, and I call this elsewhere as the holy war. In fact, many recognize the Saturn as being more useful than reality itself. We really do not know our friend. The difficulty to know the difference between reality and Saturn may be likened to the inability to recognize food from junk food, or to a learned blindness to see the difference between the clean and the polluted water. One needs to prune the tree called ego to realize his true nature. Ego is the cause of all superstition and our being away from the true and real. But the saving grace is that ego is willing to experience pain if it believes it can achieve something it wants as a result. Spiritual seeking and working on oneself is like pruning this tree to cultivate a better harvest of experience. This process is endless. I say cut the tree down, removing all the branches with its fruits and flowers. The way to cut it down is in silence, through meditation and cleaning. Then we find the tree itself was a product of our thought, or what Master calls our individual creation. Once this is achieved, we need not feign freedom. Once one is free, there is no need to act like one is free. Thus, we can draw the curtains for the drama of Saturn that has been all the time pressed and presented in service to us by him at every opportunity whenever we try to peep out of the reality. Peep into reality and continue to live and abide in reality is the only way to keep Saturn out of our range of attention. Out of reality, we surely get into the consciousness of Saturn, and there is no solution to avoid this problem than practicing constant remembrance in every sense of the term.
Yeah.
Idea is what have we gathered which will help us in our
My understanding, there are some few pointers which Pujya sir has clearly laid out, and the primary point is that ego is the one which is playing the havoc, and to cut down the ego, the only way is to remain in silence, and that will remain in silence and work in and to be in constant remembrance, so that we do not get diverted from our path or from our goal. So that's one important thing. And this talk has got several points wherein Pujya sir clearly says that one cannot be imaginative, however great the imaginations are. one cannot afford to deliver diamonds out of imagination. So those points are the takeaway points, like where we should be, where we are asked to live in this constant remembrance. So those are the main takeaway points, I guess, in my understanding. And Sir clearly elaborated on the ego and how it plays havoc in this talk.
Anyone else wants to share their understanding?
Namaste, brothers. So one thing which kind of struck with me was when Pujya sir is saying that like there are different marketing of reality, or there are different ways which people will kind of serve reality to you, and like don't get confused by those, because the reality cannot be just understood or seen through direct senses, or what is easy to achieve. It is much harder and much beyond. So the distinction between what is reality and what is sold as reality is something which kind of stuck with me. It is something which we have to intellectualize and understand rather than seek outside.
Another point he says is, suppose you have a condition and then you don't own that condition. And if you own that condition, he says the identity itself will change. What you were 6 months ago, you are not the same person. Your identity has changed totally. Your mind has transformed totally and you become a new person. And in that way, as you keep moving towards the divine, your identity keeps on changing. And then on the way, you'll acquire some divine qualities. But if you have a very deep momentary experience of losing the ego, and then you allow that experience to slip from your consciousness, and then you believe that you have arrived, then the Saturn will emerge also. I mean, you start becoming a guru, and then you become a Saturn instead of... so till the stage, what he calls the rings of splendor, till you feel very... till you feel natural. That means you don't have to make any effort to be in his consciousness. If you're drowned in his consciousness continuously without any effort on your part, then you are living in your being. That is, then you can, that is the state of mind he was highlighting actually. And he was highlighting another point which we spoke in the early morning about Lalaji's talk about how thoughts are illusions. And when we keep on, most of our, generally our mind is, we go on fantasy trips whenever we see any object, and then we remember that, and then that links up into, that creates thoughts about something, and those thoughts create thoughts about something else, like that, and then whole different world is created in the mind. And the problem is we are seduced by that. We actually enjoy those thoughts. We dream that it will be like this, it will be like this. We dream about future, and then future will be like this, and we start living like that. So whereas if you are thinking about the master, your mind becomes silent, and in that silence you are in his presence. So you have to train your mind to be in silence continuously, and that is a method which helps you to remain in reality. And it is very easy to slip into a state of being a Saturn. The idea is very simple. You see, you can, it is like this. Inside your heart, or in every cell of a body, or every cell of the environment, everywhere around, there is a subtle presence of divinity is there. But in the heart, we can feel him more clearly. And then when your mind is settled on divine, you're peaceful. That is your Sat Swarupa. It is called Tadadrashta Swarupa Avasthanam. That means the drashta, the seer or the awareness is resting in the master. That is a state of balance. So during that balance only, a person is truly living in a state of his being. Their ego will not be there. Mind itself will not be there. You have transcended the mind. The mind is as if it were non-existent there. But our mind is between this consciousness, between the master and the world. And if you have to see the world, you have to leave the company of the master. So once you leave the company of the, the general nature of the Saturn will make you believe that happiness is there outside master. That means he is not in the master. If you move outside and look for sensual pleasures, whatnot, which sir has brilliantly described, it makes you believe that your happiness is in name and fame, and then thinking about the future, think that future you'll get promotion, or future you'll be healthy, or you go on holidays. I mean, you develop a relationship with beautiful people, enjoy beautiful relationships, what everything is, and you start enjoying that thinking actually. And then if one of those ideas catch your fancy very strongly, you put all your efforts to, you think that if you earn that money or you settle in that foreign country, you'll be very, very happy. And then you start making all your efforts to accumulate money to reach that goal. And then the huge amount of effort is spent in, but once you reach that place, you realize that you're still dissatisfied. So the point here is, the moment your mind leaves the company of the master, it is in Saturn only. It is unhappy only. It can only be happy when it is back to its base. It is the other outside objects are attracting your mind, are giving you promise that if you get that object or to get that relationship or get that name and fame, you'll be happy. That feeling is projected from those outside objects or outside thinking and all that. But you must know that they are the reflections of God only. If God is not present there, they will not be capable of enticing your mind to get attracted towards them. But that is a fake one. That is a mirage actually, or that is a reflection in the mirror. In the mirror, our reflection is there. The reflection is a virtual thing, but reality is we are staying in front. We are real. So the world is actually a reflection of God, and we try to search for happiness in the world. But since it is a fake one, since it is a reflection, we are immediately dissatisfied. We do so much of hard work. We feel that if we do business in real estate or stock market, we'll get so much of money. You plan and then you make 100 crores or 10 crores. And after reaching the target, when you see, you realize yourself, you're again, same dissatisfaction persists. Why? Because that is a reflection of God. That's not the real thing. Real thing, real happiness, real joy, real peace is inside in your heart only. So if we experientially we all know it, but the mind is so badly trained, and the external influences in the society are so powerful, we actually become a victim of the society's influences, rather than believing our own experience, that once we think about the master and then once we meditate, the mind becomes extremely calm, and that experience people who don't meditate can never get it. And the peace which you get is extraordinary, and then extremely peaceful and contented feeling is there. Even though it's an imperience with us, we instead of having faith in our own experience, we believe that we fall a victim to the society's agendas and myths. Actually, what Sir has described so many myths about that, money, rich people are happy, or beautiful things last forever. These are all myths, but we fall for the myths because we are not making a constant endeavor to own the condition. Feel vulnerable because if you're walking down a step, the step is not there, you're falling down. So that's why he says when people visited Master, when they feel they don't feel like staying within, they feel like coming out, because when you're trying to lose your baggage with which you have developed such a lot of attachment, it can be a frightening experience. So to avoid that frightening experience, we go back to being a Saturn actually. And then, but then we are away from real peace. We'll be just imagining that future will be peaceful when our health is restored, or our health, our friends become okay, or children become happy in life, or whatever. I mean, you dream that you will be happy in the future. That is what desire is. Desire is only desire can be fulfilled only in the future. In the present, you will not be there. Constant remembrance is trying to live in the present only, where you don't worry about future, or don't brood about the past. So constant remembrance actually, in a practical sense, means trying to live in the present only, and then be fully enjoying the present. Actually, suppose you are eating food, fully enjoying the taste of it, living in the body itself. That is why if you see Tinsukya message, he says you have to become more and more introvert. He says that means your consciousness should be restricted within our body itself, and within our body that means it should remain restricted to the heart itself. That means meditation, the other definition he gives is your mind get accustomed to remain in the center itself instead of wandering here and there. Later on, of course, the mind will assume such a fine state that it will start feeling the presence of Master, not only restricted in the body, but outside also you'll feel the same presence of Master, subtle presence outside also. Then you are actually escaping from those limitations, or you start transcending the limitations of your mind itself. But initial stages, the practice involves trying to stay in the thought of the Master, trying to stay in the body itself. And once you master that stage, automatic next steps automatically open up. So I think that is in fact, that is a central theme of constant remembrance. Is one of the unique theme of the Master. We'll read in Silence Speaks about my pain he talks about. But before that, I'll just read a small thing I thought I have just noted it down. This is I picked up from a narration of Sister Kasturi when she wrote a small article about her experience with Babuji and all that. It is available in that site called babujisriramchandra.com actually. There she describes about Babuji. I'll just read it. In that the concept of constant becomes quite clear. Inverted one. He used to tell people about Sahaj Marg in a very natural and simple way. but neither he himself ever told. This is important. You kindly pay attention. I am trying to say, but neither he himself never told, nor he let the Abhyasis feel that Sahaj Marg is so very easy, or the Abhyasis have to do nothing in it. He never told that it is easy, that you don't have to do anything. He never gave that message to the people. He said it is simple, but he never gave an idea that it is easy or you don't have to do anything. So that is one. He prescribed meditation for 1 hour in the morning, 20 minutes cleaning in the evening, and prayer at bedtime. That is all. But in the last sentence, which he used to say in the end, this is important, but in the last sentence, which he used to say in the end, inverted commas, the Abhyasi should remain drowned in meditation throughout the day. The Abhyasi should remain drowned in meditation throughout the day. That was the last sentence he used to tell when he used to describe newcomers who would come about how to do puja and all that. Then it becomes very helpful in the progress of the Abhyasis. He used to say that. He says, then it becomes very helpful in the progress of the Abhyasis. This sentence was the essence of the whole of the sadhana. There was no emphasis on any word, and every sentence was spoken so softly in such a natural way that there was no pressure at all in his voice. So he, apart from this practice of meditation, cleaning, bedtime, he says the essence of the practice is you should be drowned in the remembrance of the drowned in meditation throughout the day. So this point has to be understood. My particular feeling is, sir also discussed with me, he when he talks about the fourth commandment and all that, he also talks about, there he told me when the Buddhist people who talk about mindfulness, he says mindfulness is nothing but constant remembrance. You are living in the present. You are eating food. You feel that master inside is eating food. The problem with the whole, it is, I'll go slightly try to explain it further. The problem is such, the mind is cannot grapple with reality actually, because it is beyond, it is so subtle, it cannot grapple with it. But it can have the company of the master, it can live in the presence of the divine. But if it tries to understand what is God, from where is it, what is the nature of master, how is he trying to help me, if you try to search for the master, you'll never get it. But if you you just think that master is eating food, that's all about it, and don't think where is he, how is he seeing, because your sensory experience itself is being the experiencer who is experiencing your sensory experience when you're eating food or drinking tea, and when you're fully in that experience, that experiencer himself is the master actually. But it is so simple, we think that there's somebody hiding inside that experiencer, we are trying to search for it, which is not possible. But then we also are very clearly aware of ourselves, and we cannot say that it is non-existent. It is also existence. God is also existent. Awareness of ourselves is also, we can say it is not non-existent. So that is why when you keep on sincerely trying to live in the present, a stage comes when you transcend the feeling that master is doing, and you transcend the feeling that of yourself also, because the idea that you also transcend that self, then you start living in that being actually. So it's a continuous practice, because our brain is accustomed to living in the future only. We don't live in the present. Like suppose if you are talking, my mind should be 100% be oriented to your, I should listen with 100% of it. That is constant remembrance. So suppose you're talking and then I'm thinking, what should I do? I think I should have spoken about this point of the master which came in my meditation. If I'm thinking like that, that is not constant. I've lost the constant. If I feel that my master is sitting in front of the computer and trying to listen to all the brothers who are talking, and if I'm attentive to the talk, that is constant. But during attention, if I think that, no, I should have said this point, a beautiful thought came to me in meditation, in my diary, this will be helpful to others. If I think about that, then I'm losing that constant. Practically, I'm trying to tell you practically how I practice it. So actually, it is very simple, but the mind is so very excited and is been living for so many years in a seeking for excitement and pleasure, and it creates a mental world that, and it gets seduced by its own thoughts so powerfully that it cannot appreciate the simplicity of the presence of the divine. We'll have a free session. I mean, we're all friends trying to, everybody seems to be silent. We are all trying to share whatever we know and enjoy the company of each other. With Sir is trying to. My idea is, it is a very simple thing. It needs practice actually. Like I go for a walk every day, 1 hour. I try to see that I only walk and merely walk without thinking actually. I will not allow, but I am aware of the presence of master, because every muscle which is moving, like suppose even now I am trying to scratch my head like this. You know, my the biceps muscle has got 2.5 million muscle fibers are there, and each muscle fiber is controlled by one nerve impulse, and several antagonistic muscles are there. They have to relax and contract in a very synergistic manner, and the brain does an extraordinarily wonderful job of accomplishing this scratching in a, you don't even know, but then that is happening. Wonderful event is happening that can happen not because of your willpower or not because of your greatness. That is happening because of the power of the master. So simple act of scratching my and talking also is actually the manifestations of the presence of the master. So you become aware of your own heartbeat. You are in the remembrance of master. You become aware of your body, aware of your thoughts. Not getting identified with the thoughts, just watch your thoughts. And that comes to the next chapter of diary writing. If you're aware of the thoughts, then you realize that they don't have power, and then you arrest the what is called the fantasizing capacities. Man wants to fantasize about things. Especially all of us have experience when we were young and all that. We think that, oh, suppose if that film actor or actress becomes our friend, what nice it would be. Suppose some top cricketer is our friend who play with us. Then we imagine ourselves like that. All of us indulge in fantasies actually. And this fantasies that is how the mind works. And yoga is chittavritti nirodha. Yoga is transcending the mind. Mind should become like a instrument for us. Just like my hand is now, I'm picking up this phone. When I pick that phone, then only I'm conscious of my muscles acting and then the hands picking up the phone. Other time, I'm not conscious of my hand actually at all. In the same way, I'm not conscious of my heartbeat. I'm not conscious of my breathing. When I become sick, I become conscious. When I have asthma, I become conscious of breathing. When I have angina, I become conscious of the presence of my heart. Whenever I have palpitation, I become conscious of it. So otherwise, normal consciousness, you're not conscious of your body. You're not even conscious of your soul also, mind and soul also. That is a state of realization, which Babuji has clearly mentioned in several of his articles. So when you do meditation properly, mind also will become like an instrument, like your hand or feet or your throat, which comes into operation whenever you have an intention to use it. When you don't have an intention to use it, then you're not aware of its presence. That is a state of realization. But you can practice to bring it into actualization. Actually, that is what I feel is what is constant remembrance all about. Or like I do, I follow the other example is Babuji says, in your spare time, with firm conviction, think that these points are important. You should have a firm conviction, think that God is pervading all animate and inanimate things. Animate and inanimate things, it is including my hair cell and my all this, every cell of my body, or whatever, 60, 70 trillion cells which are composed, he is present in that. So just feel finger moving. So I'm conscious of his because he's present in every cell. So if you, in a relaxed frame of mind, you conceive of this idea that God is present everywhere, and then put that idea and do continue to walk, then it's a beautiful pastime actually. And then the whole 1 hour of walking becomes your meditation. Like that, you can incorporate it into every activity of your day. But it requires practice, because I'm since practicing for the last so many years, more than 4.5 decades. It's not that easy. You just relax your grip. The Saturn comes back with renewed vigor. They'll be looking for a loophole, then they come back with renewed vigor and then hijack your whole mind away actually. In a sense, you can think it as like an enemy or whatever it is. Like suppose when your guard is down, the opponent will immediately, like you can see the politics going around, how a person wants to become chief minister, what plans they will do. If a person wants to become MLA, his enemies and all that. A lot of game subplots and all will be there. And when a person becomes weak, he is, the negative forces pile up and then try to crush him or defeat him. In the same way, when you're going on the path, if you take the help of master, your journey is safe. But then if you relax the grip and then you lose his connection or link with him, then the other natural forces, the Adi Daivika, they all will pile up on you, and then again you realize that you're going back. Then you try to make a renewed self-motivation to be in his condition. These things keep on happening in your internal. It's a warfare, like it's a yuddha, Mahabharata yuddha. Like Arjuna says, it is a person like Arjuna who is such a courageous and efficient person. He says, how can I control my mind? It's so difficult to control. Lord Krishna says, yes, I agree that it is difficult to control, but by abhyasa vairagya abhyam, it can be brought under control by continuous practice. So this is nothing unique about it. Proper humanity who is trying to achieve a state of balance or achieve freedom from suffering or miseries. True freedom happens only when, as Sir says, you are in your own being, or when we do meditation, we reach that island of peace inside us. When you start staying for more and more time, and finally you become established in that, you develop an identity in that state of mind, then only, before that, it will drive you away from the path actually.
No, you wanted to ask or share something, right? Related to constant remembrance?
No, I was. Sir has in couple of the talks, sir has a book reading session, sir clarified, and he just clarified again. We always think it more like a conscious remembrance, and I think just knowing the heartbeat, just being in the present. I think he clarified that, and that's what again in this session he clarified. So that's what I wanted to.
Another point I will like to share. I had a discussion with sir. He says, initially I used to commit this mistake. I was not trusting my subconscious mind, especially when I started my practice in 75. I used to concentrate. I used to use my willpower to keep the image of Babuji in my mind. Actually, it is a kind of a meditation, or like the Trataka thing is there, no? Trataka, you try to see the image and then try to keep on looking, and then when you close your eyes, the after image falls in your mind, and the after image is you are supposed to meditate on the after image. This is one type of meditation which is prescribed in several other systems, and which is valid also. So it is a method of concentration. You're training your mind to stay on one object, and so it used to cause a lot of headache and tension in my head and all that. So I neglected my other duties and tried to do this practice. And sir actually had a discussion with me. How can you do that? It is wrong. Suppose you're doing surgery, at that time you're thinking about the master, you will be doing harm to the patient. You cannot do like that. Before doing, you just think about him and dedicate, and then plunge into the work. And that is the suggestion you give to the subconscious mind. And after the work is over, that 6 or 7 hours I'm spending in the hospital is converted into worship. And when the work is over and you sit back, the thought of the master will come back to your conscious mind. So that is the natural way, actually. It is not, but when you're free, like now I'm free, I can practice that God is present in all of you, and then is present in my body, is present in the air around surrounding me, and is present in this chair. When I breathe the air, that is a form of God, and then that is causing oxygenation of my red cells. It is helping my system. I'm able to live. I'm grateful for just breathing the air, and without any pain I'm breathing. So I can feel grateful to God who has given me this air to breathe, and then enjoy the breathing and living experience. Living itself is a joy, actually. So mere awareness that you're alive is a joyful feeling, actually. So then I can continuously practice enjoying my breathing, or then enjoying my thoughts, trying to feel the presence of God everywhere. When you're free time, I can utilize my conscious energy to think about Him. But when you're doing work, you have to give suggestion to the subconscious.
Yeah,
But then trivial problems can get you bold, you know. Like if you have a small interest in some politician, small interest in some sports and all that, you know, those things also become huge hindrances in the path. They can totally take you away from this, because you think it's very trivial, it's not so important, because people who are seriously practicing meditation, they're free from major types of desires, and then major types of prejudices, ill will. I mean, you don't try to treat anybody with less respect, and then you don't judge people that they're bad people, they don't practice meditation, or they left the master. All those things, you're transcended, you're much beyond those things where, you think bad about other people, or think in uncomplimentary way about other people. That you sense it and you enjoy it, actually, because it gives a lot of peace. But then you think that this is a small debate I'm seeing, it's just for time pass and fun, and then you get into it, and then your mind can be dragged along that path, and then those risks are there. You have to be alert, all those things. So
Yes, sir, even that.
Unless you have a clear philosophical perspective, which requires, there the one-pointedness comes, and then devotion and determination come into picture. That determination and devotion becomes easy when we are in a group, actually. Like this Basant is coming. So my mind is aware that it is coming, and then we have to be in his thought. So there is a shame aspect of your mind which comes into play, which helps you to be in touch with divine thoughts. You feel that no, you cannot tell a lie when you're talking about Babuji. You should follow it yourself. If you don't follow, and then there's a dissonance between you. So you that actually makes you feel bad about it. So in order to have a mind which is free from remorse, that means there's no guilt feeling that you wasted your time, precious time, which life is a gift, and then you're utilizing it in the work of the master. That sort of thoughts will arise when we feel that we have to all talk together and meet together. So that in that way, a company of people who are loving the master, we all join together. It is very easy to be to walk on the path towards the goal. If you are alone, then it's a struggle. It's an uphill climb, actually.
Sir, also in the talk from the when Pujya Sirs went out of reality talk, this is also one of the hindrances that I find. He says one of the greatest lies is that which is familiar is trustworthy. But that is a myth, and I have found that the familiar is not trustworthy. But because it is familiar, it has the habit-forming capacity of making us feel it is trustworthy. And then habit does not grant clarity. And unfortunately, it can and does often obscure clarity. So I think a lot of these things, I think we, there's so many habits that we have formed, as you have rightly pointed out, either in the form of thoughts that we have entertained or fantasies or things like that, right, sir? So, and then we are a creature of our habits, or we tend to go back to those habits and be away from the presence of master, or be away in the company of master.
Habit, when you are saying we are in habit, we are in a way we are unconscious, or you can say we are zombies, to put the technical term. So we are just driven by a program which we have been programmed into us. We react as per that program. We don't have any freedom to creatively live a life of joy and so there's a question from Dr. Revati, learning music or art or gratification. You see, we had a trainer when Babuji was there, one GS Mani. He was a very classical, he was made preceptor also. The art, any art which is a gift from God, and you try to develop it and you accept it that it is a God-given gift, and you value that gift is given from God and it has to be utilized in the service of God, then that's not a bar, actually. Like suppose I am a surgeon, my surgical skills are a gift from God, and then I should be aware that the God has given me the gifts, and I use the gifts for the general welfare of people. Then it will not, then that thinking is a spiritual way of thinking. But if I think that I have earned this skill myself, and then, and if somebody praises me that you're a good surgeon, I feel elated. If somebody criticizes me that I'm a bad surgeon, I feel depressed. Then that is ego coming into play. So any activity you can do which carries, but then you have to involve God into that. Then it will not be any problem. learning is in every learning is important. We have certain. We are an expression of God. Each person is an expression of God. Each person has got some unique capabilities, and to express those unique capabilities to its fullest extent is the purpose for which we are born. No human being is separate from God. Everybody is an expression of God, and each person has got some unique capabilities. And to express the capabilities to its fullest extent is the purpose for which we are born, actually. And there's a joy in trying to reach your optimum potential, actually, in whatever field you find yourself in, whatever field of life your destiny takes you into that field. You should try to excel into that field to the possible excellence which you are capable of. That is, in a way, expression, one of the divine qualities of the divine master, actually.
So, sir, when you say envision God, when you say when you talk about God, what do you envision actually? Like, what is there in your mind?
What? I didn't get you. What is the question?
When you say about God, what is there in your mind?
So when I think about, because to tell you frankly, God is the most subtlest force, actually. I mean, if you can imagine, 1 minute, I'll just. Now, I'll just give you an idea. The only thing in existence, this is from Showers of Divine Grace message at Bangalore 68. I mean, I'll just read this. Only thing in existence before creation came into existence was divinity in the original state, and everything in essence form was merged in it. If you can conceive that, you can call that as God. Just listen to me. It becomes very clear. I mean, all major philosophical points will get clear in this article. I'll just read this article. You pay some attention. The process of manifestation started with Kshob, which stirred up a churning movement in the sphere of the latent motion. Activity revived, and with it, the force got enlivened. Force, it's a kind of a force. Force got enlivened and started its action towards manifestation. As I told you, when I'm scratching my head, there are about 2.5 million muscle fibers which are controlled very precisely by various nervous function. So that's a force which is in action. So that force and God is the same force. To get a sense, activity revived with it, the force got enlivened and started its action towards manifestation. The line of action, though in perfect consonance with divinity. So the force which has created the atoms, subatomic particles, molecules, and then various combination of atoms, which has, they are in perfect consonance with divinity, appeared in its outer aspect to be somewhat different from it, since it has taken another course arriving at manifestation. So different collection of atoms is this phone, and different collection of atoms is this book. But outer form, it is different. This book is different from computer, but basically it is of the same energy which is moved into protons, neutrons, electrons, and all that. But originally, before they became a book on the cell phone, they were in a very subtle form of energy. The line of action, though in perfect consonance with divinity, appeared in its outer aspect to be somewhat different from it, since it has taken another course arriving at manifestation. It may, for that reason, this word I want you to understand, it may, for that reason, be termed as line of divinity. So anything manifesting, all the people sit, you are there now, Dharmesh is there, my computer is there, I am there, all the people are there. They are a manifestation of that force. So it may for that reason be termed as line of humanity because of its close association with the formation of man. So that force which was there before the creation came in existence has brought you into existence. So you are actually a form of God, actually. Both the lines are now in action, the divinity and the humanity, running side by side, parallel to each other. But since creation was primary object at the root, the line of humanity began to acquire predominance, and everything, including man, began to assume a tangible form, though subtlest at that stage. In other words, the line of humanity became the base of the entire structure, but its action remained subject to the dormant actions of the line of divinity, which ran along parallel to it. So the proper working of the force went on bringing out forms and shapes. As a matter of fact, humanity could have never worked so well without proceeding along in conjunction with the line of divinity. In short, the humanity set itself conjointly with divinity running parallel to it. I just gave you the example of this muscles acting while scratching, how many muscles are acting. The coordinating force which is doing this magic in my brain cells, which is doing an extraordinary event of contracting so many muscles in unison to create a very smooth action, that coordinating force which has created my muscles and my skin and body and my mind, that coordinating force, you can think it as God, actually. So it is a subtle thing. It is not, it is an unseen director running the whole show. So when you say divine light without luminosity, when I use the word, that is of also the nature of love. It has got a quality of God called loving you without any reason. So it has got divine qualities of balance. It has got divine qualities of simplicity, divine qualities of plainness. And it is holding all the atoms together. All chemical bonds which are reactions happening are because of that force only. It's a binding force which is causing all these weak nuclear forces, strong nuclear forces, gravitational forces, electromagnetic force, everything is, all these things is one force only. And when we think of divine light in the heart, I get that idea. And since because of my fortune, I was able to meet Babuji, the affection with which, with total love with which he looks after people who come in contact with him, gives you the feeling of that beauty and happiness possible when two human beings meet. So the divine aspect is very difficult to describe it in words, but I take that idea, that quality of Babuji also as representing the word called divine. And when you use the word divine light, you can take it that as God. It's very difficult to put it in words, but these are the practical ways I can explain to you my experience.
Yeah.
So when we are thinking about divine light, that faint idea or subtle idea should be there. And then because it is impossible for the mind to know completely about God. You cannot know, but you can be with him. You can enjoy his company, but you cannot know him because you cannot know by definition, the famous Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the sage Yajnavalkya's statement you have to remember, you can never know the knower. The awareness is there. Awareness is the God inside you. You can never know him. You can live with him. You can stay in him, but you can never know him. So trying to, you have a egoistic feeling that I am a great person. My thinking is very great. I can know about God. I can think about him. And then I'll pierce this mystery and then I'll win a Nobel Prize or whatever. It's all stupid. It's impossible. It's not at all possible, actually. It is, you move into ignorance. You become like a, the ultimate state is written in Efficacy of Raja Yoga or towards infinity. Babuji clarifies it is beyond vidya and avidya, like that. So mind is not capable, it is just an instrument. It's a brain and your mind are a gift from God. They are there, that's all. It can be your friend or it can be your enemy. But it can help you to reach God. It can make you feel God, but you can never understand it. So all our frustrations are because our monkey mind believes that it can know God by thinking about Him, by meditating, or, I'm a great person, I've done so much of donation, I worked hard, and then, I did so much good to humanity. Finally, God will reveal to me, I'll know the whole mystery will be solved by me. Those are all stupid, actually.
Sir, sometimes we get aback suddenly, whether that shows a kind of a presence of God that we acknowledge, or what is it?
God is always present. Only thing is we are not allowing Him to enter into our mind. That's all. We are putting obstructions. So one of the method, Babuji's unique method is cleaning grossness. If you remove the obstructions, He is always there only. I mean, just like when Einstein has discovered and proved general theory of relativity, doesn't mean that general theory of relativity came to existence in 1919 when it got proved. It is there since, it is there eternally, it is there, it is Sanatana. Only thing, your mind understood it at that particular time. So God is always there with us. Only thing is our mind is so gross, it is not able to feel the presence. As simple as that. So purity is there always with us. God is always with us. So in that sense, some people, like if you read Ashtavakra Gita, he will say you don't have to meditate, because if you're thinking of meditating, that means you believe that God is not with you. That's another way of this thing. But he also talks about practice and all that. But the whole central theme of his discussion is you're already that, so why should you strive to become that? Sir, in Sir's article also, repeatedly that idea comes across. As Sir says, it is if you meet the master and the various masters, when you meet, it will be a totally different thing. That is why Babuji insisted that people should visit him. Because when you're actually confronting reality in its naked states, the lessons you learn will be much more important than imagination and thinking.
So we want to conclude for today. Or any questions related to this topic?
Okay, then we'll meet tomorrow again at 9:30.